Garmin Guru. In this video, I'm going to review the Curvy Roads function that comes with the Garmin Zumo 590. So in order to review and test the function, I'm going to ride out into the countryside and pick 2 points in the landscape about 20 miles apart, and then ride 3 different routes between those 2 points. So the first route I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Garmin Curvy Roads function to plot a route and then ride that route. The second route I'm going to do is a user-defined route, so I'm going to create a route based on my local knowledge. And the third route is going to be a control run just along the motorway so that there's some standard data to compare the other 2 routes with. In terms of the data I'm going to be collecting, the first piece of data is the number of corners on each route. So as I ride each route, I'll film it with my Garmin Verb action camera and count the number of corners. I won't count corners such as the corners in villages where the speed limit is 30 miles per hour, or slight corners which don't require you to make any adjustments to your road position or throttle. The next piece of data I'm going to record is my average heart rate over each route. So I've got a Garmin heart rate monitor. I'm going to pair that with my Garmin Verb action camera and record my heart rate across each of the 3 routes and then create an average. That should give an indication of how exciting the routes are. And finally, I'll give an opinion on the routes based on my experience as a motorcyclist. So for the test location, I'm going to start the route in a village called Shutford, which is northwest of London. If I zoom out, you'll see where it is there. The reason I'm starting the route at Shutford is because the direction we're going, which is north, there's no immediately obvious route to take. If I was to start the test a bit further to the east here, near Banbury, the Zumo would take the B4100, which runs parallel with the motorway, as its chosen curvy route, because that's the most obvious choice. So to avoid it taking an obvious route, I'm going to start at Shutford because there are many options from there. So we're going to navigate north up to this place here, which is the junction with the B4087 and the B4100 next to this place called Oakley Wood. So if I right click and put directions to here, you'll see a route that Google would typically suggest as a navigational route. So what I'll do is I'll show you the route I'm going to do as the user-defined route. So I'm going to go east here to the B4100 and continue on that road all the way to the destination. So that's pretty much the route I'm going to take, and we'll look at the route the Garmin takes a bit later. For the control route, that's the motorway section, I'm going to ride back from the destination here to the start point at Shutford via the motorway and the most direct route, and that will give us some data to compare with. So to start with, we'll ride route 1, which is the route defined by the Garmin Curvy Roads function. So here we go. So on the Zumo, I'm going to click Settings, Navigation, Calculation Mode, and check that that's set to Curvy Roads, then press Save. I'm going to go back to the home screen and click Where To. Now I'm going to click on History because I've got the location saved in there, and click our destination, and then click Go. So I'm now going to ride the route. So what I've done is put together some highlights from the route so you can see the best corners that the Garmin has picked out to ride. So that brings us to the end of the first route, and there were certainly some great roads on that section. So next I'll ride Route 2, which is the return leg back to the start point along the motorway. This will provide us with some control data to compare the other routes with. So now I'm back at the start point again in Shutford. So to navigate my route, I go to the home screen, click on Apps, Trip Planner, and then select my route from the list. I've already programmed it in. And I click Go. So now I'll show you some of the highlights from this route. And here are the results. The map on the left shows each of the routes. The Garmin Curvy Roads route is shown in green, the user-defined route is shown in blue, and the control route, the return leg on the motorway, is shown in red. So for the purposes of this test, I only considered the motorway section of the return leg for comparison data. So in terms of corners, the Curvy Roads route had 44 corners, the user-defined route had 31 corners, and the motorway had no corners. In terms of average heart rate, the Curvy Roads route had an average heart rate of 84 beats per minute, the user-defined route had an average heart rate of 85 beats per minute, and the control and motorway route had an average of 76 beats per minute. So in terms of average heart rate, there's nothing really to separate the Curvy Roads route and the user-defined route, but it's interesting to see that on the motorway, heart rate was generally lower. Considering heart rate, it may not be the best tool to use for comparing curvy roads, because if you're on a very curvy section of road and you're very dialed into your motorbike and very focused, your heart rate may actually come down as you become more focused and relaxed. Considering the corners, the Curvy Roads route did have more corners than the one I defined, the user-defined route, and also the route was, in my opinion, better quality. They were nicer surfaces and more interesting roads. So in terms of conclusions, the main question really is, does the Curvy Roads function find curvy roads? And based on today's test, I'd have to say yes, it does. In fact, compared to the route I chose, based on my knowledge, the Curvy Roads route from Garmin was actually better. There were more corners and the roads were more interesting. Having said that, the topic of curvy roads is quite subjective, and that some people will consider a road a great road, whereas other people won't. So there is a bit of opinion involved in that. One final thought is that the Garmin Curvy Roads function is there to find curvy roads, or twisty roads if you like. Now, to give it the best chance of finding those, you need to ride into an area where there are good roads. So examples in England are areas of Kent, areas of Essex, or areas of the Cotswolds. If you ride into one of those areas, it's highly likely that the Curvy Roads function will find you good roads. From my experience of using it also, it does find interesting roads that you perhaps wouldn't have considered or thought of, so it does open up the landscape slightly, so I would definitely recommend using it. Thanks for watching, and remember to like, share and subscribe.